What's happening everyone, my name is Alex and welcome back to a new action camera review. And I know we haven't had one of these on the channel for quite some time. So today I have a brand new one from Onreal, and yes, this looks very similar to their previous model. However, now this one can record in real 4K. So this camera is using the HiSilicon 3559 processor and the Sony IMX377. And I have to say that the quality of the 4K recordings that I got from this camera is probably the best that I've seen from any action camera in the past year and a half. So you can find this camera for about $130, and for that price we get an action camera that looks decent. We have a touchscreen on the back, we get a waterproof case for it, and supposedly the waterproof case is good to up to 30 meters in the water, but no, I haven't been diving with it, but I did have the waterproof case in water and there was no water going inside. Aside from that, we get a remote control, and this remote control you can actually charge. It has a micro USB charging port on the back, and with this you can start and stop recordings, you can take pictures, and you can even turn on and off the screen, so very useful. Aside from that, you're gonna find the user manual, and of course we have a bunch of other accessories and mounts, so you can basically mount the camera anywhere. The camera itself looks and feels decent, and it has a bit of weight to it, and it kind of reminds me of the E4K Plus. So every time I hold this one, I kind of feel like I'm holding the E4K Plus. So on the front we have the lens, at the top we have the power button, and that's also the recording button. We have the holes for the speaker. On the left hand side we have a little plastic flap that covers the USB-C port, and we also have the hole for the microphone. At the bottom we have a 1/4 inch screw hole, so you can basically mount this on a tripod, and that's great if you're doing time lapses. And talking about time lapses, yes, this camera can do time lapses at the press of a button, and this is a quick example of a time lapse that I've done with this camera. Next to that screw hole we also have a little plastic door that covers the 1000 mAh battery and the slot for the SD card. So this camera can take SD cards up to 128 gigs. However, me personally, I've only tried 264 gig SD cards and they did both work well. And I'm gonna leave links in the video's description just in case you don't know what SD card to get for your camera. And talking about the battery, well, on one charge you should be able to record for about an hour if you're recording in 4K, or about an hour and 20 minutes if you're recording in 1080p. As for charging the camera, well, that takes about 2 hours. You can also charge this while recording, so if you have a power bank with you, you can just plug in a power bank and keep recording while charging it. And that also means that we have a car mode available, and you can use this as a dash camera, and with that mode the camera basically turns on and off every time you turn on and off the car. The 2.45 inches screen on the back is an IPS panel, and as I mentioned earlier, this is also a touch screen, but unfortunately we cannot adjust the brightness. I've seen other cameras in the past where you can actually adjust the screen's brightness. However, the way the screen looks, it is bright enough so you can use it outside, and it also has really good viewing angles. As for the touch sensitivity, it works decent, but it's definitely not as good as you'd get from a smartphone. A very important feature for this action camera is the fact that it has electronic image stabilization for 4K recording, something that we don't see very often. Now the image stabilization works, but it's definitely not as good as the image stabilization that we get from the E4K Plus. And next I want to show you a clip with the image stabilization on and with the image stabilization off, and then so you can see how the image stabilization does while running. So let's check those out.
"4K 30 frames per second, electronic image stabilization on, running test."
And as you've seen for yourself, the image stabilization works decent if you are recording in 4K, but definitely not perfect. But it is better if you are recording in 1080p, so you may be better off to record in 1080p if you need better image stabilization, or if you're not using a gimbal. Now, one small issue that I found with this camera is the fact that the sound recordings from the internal microphone don't seem to be in sync with the actual video recording. The microphone sounds okay, but you're gonna have to do some work in editing afterwards so you can get that sound where it's supposed to be. So here is an example of of a couple of microphone recordings that I've done with this camera.
This is a quick microphone test with this new Onreal 4K action camera that I'm trying out. So I'm currently recording in 4K at 30 frames per second. I also have the electronic image stabilization on, and as you can probably see, I am walking and it is a bit windy. So under these conditions, this is how a microphone recording from this action camera would sound like. moving on to our second microphone test. This time around I am recording from behind the camera, and once again I'm walking and I'm recording in 4K at 30 frames per second, and once again there is a bit of wind. So under these conditions, so walking and talking behind the camera, this is how microphone recording from this action camera would sound like.
Next, we are gonna check out some daytime recordings that I've done with this camera, and well, all of them are done in 4K, and as I mentioned earlier, all the 4K recordings that I've done with it look absolutely stunning. Some of the recordings were filmed using a gimbal, and some of them were used just using the electronic image stabilization, the built-in electronic image stabilization, but you're gonna be able to see everything at the bottom of the screen. And yes, the footage, the 4K footage that you're gonna record with this camera during the day looks absolutely stunning. So let's check that out. And we are moving on to some nighttime recordings, and of course the nighttime recordings aren't gonna be as good as the daytime recordings, but I think they do really good for an action camera. And of course, if you're using a gimbal and you have the electronic image stabilization turned off, the recordings do look better. So let's check those out. Of course, since this is a camera, it can also take pictures, and the same kind of goes for pictures. If you take pictures during the day, the pictures look very sharp, very detailed, but as soon as you don't have enough light, the pictures become kind of grainy. So kind of the same with the video recordings. So yes, you can take good looking pictures during the day, not that great during the night. Another cool feature for this action camera is the ability to control it over Wi-Fi from your smartphone or tablet. So you basically have to install an app on your smartphone or tablet, then the camera makes a Wi-Fi network, you connect to that Wi-Fi network with your smartphone, and then you can control the camera from there. You can start and stop recordings, you can change settings, you can see the recordings that you've done in the past, and so on. This only works good up to 10 meters away from the camera. Anywhere further than that, it will disconnect. Next, I want to show you the camera's menu system very quick, just in case some of you are looking for some specific settings in there. And this is not very different from other cameras that I've seen in the past, but who knows, maybe you're looking for something very specific. So I'll play some music and show you that, and I'll come back after. So to quickly conclude this video, this camera has the best 4K video quality from any action camera that I've tried in the past year and a half, and it is very close to the footage that you'd get from the E4K Plus. The downside to it is the fact that the sound recordings don't actually match the video recordings, so the sound is out of sync, and it will take a bit of time to fix that whenever you're editing the footage. And the electronic image stabilization could have been better for 4K recordings. But if you're looking for the camera with the best video quality for 4K recordings, this is definitely worth checking out. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did like it, press that like button, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.